What's up, combat sports fans? It's Alex Wendling here, and I am being joined by a very special guest. It is Jackie Buntan, the strawweight sensation for one championship, who also represents the Philippines. How you doing, Jackie?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm so good. I was doing a little bit of stalking on your Instagram page, and I saw that you do some crazy photo shoots. So, what do you get more nervous for? Having those high-end photo shoots or getting ready to fight?
Oh my God, I only did, in terms of like getting my photos taken, I've been, as an athlete, you're kind of used to it, being in front of the camera. But honestly, probably doing that shoot with Numero magazine. Don't get me wrong, the team I did it with made me feel so comfortable and I was already kind of eased into it. So there's no surprises, but definitely that, because I was definitely out of my comfort zone, but I loved every minute of it.
I loved it. They made you look amazing. You always look amazing, even without makeup, but they really did you up to look like a model. Was the knives something that they wanted to do because you're Filipino and there's, the martial arts with the knives, or was that just another artistic thing that they wanted to add in?
I think it was definitely a bit of both. The photographer, a friend of mine, Jack Waterlot, he wanted to incorporate the knives in the shoot period with the whole creative, and it kind of helped me being Filipina, tying in with our Filipino martial arts. So it was one in one, really.
That's so cool. And have you ever trained with knives?
I haven't. So like the knives we used on set, some were prop, some were real. Like the one on the one of the covers, I think, the one by my mouth, that was real. So I just had to keep reminding myself, keep this thing light. Don't don't put too much pressure on it. But no, I have not trained with knives yet. I'd definitely be interested in trying though.
Yeah, I mean, your fists and kicks are just as lethal. You've been training since you were 11 years old, I believe, and it was because your brother was doing Muay Thai as hobby. You had some other options. You could have went to the local karate or taekwondo studio, but what was it about Muay Thai that attracted you at first sight?
It was really weird. Like you said, I could have went to the more traditional route with Taekwondo. There was actually like two studios within a mile radius of my house at the time, Taekwondo studios, that is. But I don't know. My brother-in-law, who was training Muay Thai, told me to, here's a quick little YouTube clip. So I was watching it, and even at a young age, I didn't understand, the full rule set or anything, but it just was so intriguing and it just looked so straightforward to me. Like, these people are at the times like these people are essentially boxing and they're kicking. Oh, there's a knee in there too. There's an elbow in there. So it just really fascinated me that you could literally use your whole body, and it was just so straightforward and direct. And that's really what pulled me into it.
And you're from the South Bay, so you have a really good gym over there in Boxing Works. Has Boxing Works always been a top gym, or did it kind of cultivate to become that when they got athletes like Janet Todd and a kind of big group of girls that are really taking this to the next level? Have they always been of that status, or was it kind of something that grew over time?
Our Boxworks, my coach, I can't remember what year, but him and his wife took over the gym, I don't know, in the late 90s. And, it definitely was a smaller gym. And I still kind of view ourselves, we're not a small gym, but I think just starting out when I was a kid, we were like a small little gym in Hermosa Beach. That was our first location. And the team just kept growing and growing and growing. And before you know, we had like a solid and big team of women, which is so, so rare to have women at a gym, especially women who compete. So, people always ask, like, are people like, are you looking for women specifically? And the answer is no. It's kind of just, like-minded people, I guess, attract to one another. And we're fortunate enough to have a solid group of girls who all work super hard, train hard. We all compete. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of just Brian kind of instilled a good little vibe and attitude in the gym that kind of just attracted the same amount of people, same like-minded people, and I think that's kind of where it just flourished.
I love that. I mean, it's probably all the good energy, word of mouth, people coming and being like, okay, I got to stick at this gym, especially when you have like a very big female presence I think that is so special because it's so hard to find that. Even when you have so many gyms in LA, I live in LA as well. I used to live closer to South Bay, so Boxing Works was something I was looking at, and then I
Okay.
became a little jujitsu nerd. Have you ever done any like wrestling or grappling, or has it always been only striking for you?
Only striking. I'm totally open to trying any of that. Jiu-jitsu always seems interesting, seems very technical. But no, just striking. That's where my heart lies.
Yes, and what is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned from your coach, Brian Popejoy?
Oh my God, I don't know. There's too many. Um, I think with, I'm different personalities always come into the sport. As a kid, I've always been laid back, so it's definitely been kind of easy to understand this mindset. But he definitely always taught me, like, not every day is going to be a perfect day. You're not going to have perfect reps every time you train. But what matters is you keep coming the next day, the next day, the next day. It's a new day. You have a whole new day to get better reps in, and just keep learning, keep absorbing.
1% better every time. Is he the man that asked you if you wanted to start competing, or when did that idea sort of come into your brain?
Um, so yeah, I started training 11, and then maybe 2 years in, when I was 13, one of our coaches at the time, he doesn't train with us anymore, but Daryl, he's the one who actually asked me if I wanted to fight. And prior to that, I had no inkling, no intentions to fight. I just wanted to do this as a hobby. But I was training 2 years, going, pretty much every day as a kid. And I really sat on it for a while, and I was like, why not? Why not try it? It's kind of like another way to level myself up. And it kind of made sense. I was like, I could see myself doing this. So it wasn't Brian who asked me, but one of the other coaches. And yeah, kind of just skyrocketed after that.
I know, right? You went from going to your first few amateur fights, having 25 fights as an amateur, 20-5 record. I think that's crazy that you cultivated that many fights, because you see so many like MMA fighters only do like one or two fights before taking it to the professional level. So when you look back at your amateur career, I'm sure you learned so much, but do you ever feel like you could have went pro earlier than you did?
Yes and no, not mostly no. Because yeah, 25 is a lot, especially as, women, especially in America, and even more specific in Los Angeles. We already get such limited opportunity here as females as is. You kind of end up recycling opponents, or like, okay, I'll move up in weight, I'll move down in weight just to find an opponent. And with my coach Brian and with our gym, it's especially from that transition to amateur to pro, we, at least for me, prior to turning pro, I told Brian my intentions. Hey, I do see myself turning professional in the future, but I already had an understanding that is entirely up to him. And I, I'm more comfortable with him letting me know, hey, I'm comfortable with you getting up to the big ranks, the big leagues. So I just kept fighting, kept training. And then until Brian told me, okay, let's do it. Let's make your pro debut. Then I made my pro debut. And it was like a funny story. I was supposed to do that the end of 2019, make my pro debut here, or in San Diego actually, but that fell through. Unfortunately, usually that's not a good thing, but fortunately it fell through, and I got two offers after that for signing into two different professional promotions, one being one championship. So it was kind of, one thing fell through, a bigger thing opened up, had a bigger thing opening up for the future. So it kind of worked out for me.
I love that. And I think that one is the perfect platform for you, especially being of Filipina ethnicity. They have like a very, they're based in Asia, obviously. So they do a lot of promotions with Asian fighters. How special is it that you get to represent your Filipino side, even though, you identify as like a Filipina American? Your siblings were born in the Philippines. Your mom's from the Philippines. So I'm sure that's super close to home and something you love to represent.
100%. Yeah. I was able to fortunate enough to go to the Philippines twice last year. The second time I was able to fight there in December. So that was like a dream come true, honestly. It would have been better if I had my family with me next time, hopefully.
Oh,
But yeah, it was, the energy is just different once you're there. I don't know. You could just feel the love. You just feel like, okay, a sense of like, I belong here. I want to make these people proud. And it's an incredible feeling knowing you have like a whole nation riding with you.
Yeah, I definitely feel like country pride in general is always so strong, but I feel like the Philippines takes it to another level. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm biased and I'm half Filipina, and all of the people supporting me in my journalism career on my Filipina side have always been diehard. I only recently met my Mexican side in San Diego, and they're being super diehard fans of my content that I'm making. But I just feel like the Filipina side, when it comes to anything, any activity, if there's a comedian that's Filipino, if there's a cook that's in a restaurant that's Filipino run, like the Filipino people just come and support.
No, you hit it right on the nail. I could be biased being Filipino myself, but I agree. I always tell that to people, like, Filipinos are so passionate. I think that's the reason being why they're such diehard fans of anything. You know, you could be Filipino doing whatever, like you said, cook, scientist, combat fighter, whatever. Doesn't matter. If you're Filipino and you're representing us, they're with you. They're your biggest cheerleader, and I absolutely love that.
Exactly. I'm so happy for you in your future going forwards. I know that you had a big bout originally. You were supposed to compete September 28th at the One Fight Night 10. It was going to be a rematch with Smilla, who, oh my goodness, she is a tall, lanky girl. I think it was funny in one of your interviews you mentioned she has her height listed as 5'8". She definitely doesn't look like she's 5'8" just because she's so long. So is it easy for you to emulate her game when you're training at Boxing Works? Like, are you able to find training partners that can kind of emulate her body type?
Yeah, she's definitely very tall. Definitely not 5'8", but every fight we get, whether that's me, especially with Janet too, we're both kind of able to emulate whatever style we're fighting against. So with Smila, it was a tricky one. It wasn't more so emulating her style when we first fought back last year. It was more so just finding the right people who mimic her height. And we have some tall people at our gym that I train with, like 5'8", 5'9", some 5'10" maybe. But I trained with some of the guys for that fight just to mimic the height, be able to practice that range. But I don't know, even when we fought, me and her on fight night, I kind of felt like she was even taller than the people I trained with. So that was probably the only like thing, is just finding the right person who mimics that height. Because yeah, I'm Filipino. I'm definitely I'm 5'5", so
5'5" still
I
very good for a
yeah,
Filipina,
that's
though.
true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, 5'5" is pretty tall. Yeah, we are not the tallest out there. That's crazy that you're having to like train with guys to kind of give you that height look. Smila's the only loss in your professional career, and you've never been finished before, even in all your amateur fights. When you look back to the fights that you have won since Smilla, you knocked out Deandra in the first round, and you got a big win over Amber Kitchen by unanimous decision. Amber was someone that you actually saw in the amateur league. So, what win means more to you? Getting the redemption against Amber or getting the first round knockout against Deandra?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I don't even know. I want to say probably the Deandra fight. The Amber fight meant a lot because when we first had her go around, I think it was a 5-round fight. I'm pretty sure it was a 5-round fight in the amateurs, and I'm pretty sure she won unanimous. But I wasn't incredibly happy with that performance. Completely different fighter. So second go around, I felt good. I felt like it was unanimous, able to get the win in. I didn't feel like I worked absolutely everything I wanted to, whereas compared to the Deandra fight, even though it was one round, stylistically, game plan wise, I executed everything we worked, and I was able to bring a different style into the cage, which is always hard. It's always easy to practice it, but when you have to apply it when it matters most, that's where it can be tricky. And I was able to do that in front of a sold out crowd here in the US. So I think that one definitely meant more to me. It's easy to kind of say a KO is your best fight just because you knock somebody out or stop someone. It wasn't even that. It was just all the preparation, being able to actually apply it when it mattered. That was the main factor for me.
And when we look at the differences between your amateur career and your professional career, when you're competing amateur, you're likely in a ring for the most part. But when you're in pro for one, you're competing with MMA size gloves, and then you're in the cage.
Yeah, MMA gloves. Yes.
So that changes a lot of things for you. is that like something that Brian kind of helps coach you through, or is it something that it doesn't really make too much of a difference dealing with a cage? What's your take on that?
No, that changed a whole lot for me. You know, prior to making my debut in one, I already was out of I haven't fought in like almost 2 years. Just 1 year not having opponents, fights being, getting fallen through. And the second year just COVID happened. So on
I
top of
know.
that, it was
Ugh.
being out for so long. But the main thing was understanding the geography. It's like, okay, you're not, UFC is like an octagon. You have little points, whereas the one circle, it's a circle, you have no points. So understanding your geography with being in a circle. But the biggest difference is definitely the MMA gloves. And I wouldn't say striking. Yes, it makes a difference, but it's more so defense for me because those little gloves get through any angle. So you got to make sure your defense is. I feel like I have good defense, but you have to make sure it's A1 with those MMA gloves. So we do a lot of drills prior to that, working defense, being able to rotate our shots, punch correctly, stuff like that.
And you've competed quite a lot in Muay Thai. Is there, an idea that you're going to be competing in kickboxing a lot as well in the future? I mean, I know that the Muay Thai roster for one isn't as deep as maybe like an MMA roster might be, but so do you have like ideas on, potentially becoming like a two sport champion, or are you really focused on honing in on one?
No, I definitely want to be a two sport world champion. Of course, been competing Muay Thai only so far, but ever since coming in the organization, I made it clear I wanted to do kickboxing. So even when I am ready to return, I'd love to do a kickboxing fight, whether it's Muay Thai or kickboxing, either one. But I think it'd be really fun to dabble a bit in kickboxing, go back and forth, because yeah, the goal is to attain both and keep both.
Yes. And I know you said you haven't done much jujitsu or wrestling yet, but is MMA on your mind at all?
Right now, no. I'm not saying never, but at the moment, no. I want to be able to achieve everything out of striking, out of Muay Thai, kickboxing, and then see where that takes me next.
And if you weren't in one right now, what is like a typical goal or a typical um, event that Muay Thai fighters look to that they're like, okay, I want to be champion of this? Is there something that's like on the regional scene that's like, oh, that's something that really like stakes your dominance as a Muay Thai specialist?
Yeah, there's definitely a few. You say regional, so in the States, let's see, lion fights been up and coming, but to be honest, I see there's the growth of the USA Muay Thai and WBC Muay Thai, and there's a lot of tournaments being held for that. Warriors Cup, we had a few of my teammates compete on Warriors Cup in New York, and I believe that's a pro and amateur show. And there's a lot of great athletes being flown in from all over East Coast, West Coast, wherever, competing on that show and being able to compete for a WBC belt, kind of rise through the ranks. So I always enjoy watching the Warrior Cup shows and stuff like that.
So cool. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm going to have to watch more of because I feel like there's so many things that go on, but sometimes you just don't hear about it in time until after the fact. But that's awesome that now you're with the best promotion that you could possibly be with. You've already challenged for the title. And with the latest news, one fight night 10, Smilla getting the finish over Alicia. What were your thoughts on that fight?
I think I was definitely curious who they were going to put in as a replacement for me. Alicia is definitely worthy of an opponent. I like her. I'm a fan of her striking, of her fighting style. And I was honestly so excited for that fight. I thought it'd be so entertaining, and entertaining it was. I met Alicia in December. I think she's like an inch shorter than me. So it wasn't her skill or IQ that would be the problem at all. It was just
Mhm.
dealing with that size, similar to me, just dealing with that size. So that's kind of what I left it up to. But no, that fight was great. Both ladies did so well.
Yeah, and I guess you're a little bit familiar with Alicia because she competed against your teammate Janet Todd. When you saw those two go at it, is there anything you take from their fights, like watching them? Any skills, any tips or tricks?
Yeah, it was kind of just funny how it worked out. Like me and Janet, two former opponents that are, now competing against each other. But No, I think for me it was more so I just always like to see the adaptability of each fighter, whether I'm competing against them or not, just seeing how they're able to adapt from their last fight, because I think that speaks volumes. If you're able to go in there the next time and showcase some new styles, some new technique, I think that that matters most.
So what is next for Jackie Buntan? Are you looking to get the next title shot, or is there something else on your radar that is more interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm ready to return, I would love to, I think I've put in a lot of work into to get to where I'm at to right now and to be worthy of that title shot. So I'm not worried that that opportunity slipped through my fingers. I know it's going to be there for me. I know it is there for me. Just like I said, I've been proving myself time and time again why I deserve that shot. So when I am ready to come back, whether I get another 3 round fight or I dabble a bit in kickboxing, doesn't matter. If I'm active, I'm happy.
And how hard of a decision was it to take yourself out of the title opportunity with Smilla? Was it something that you had to go to your family about and say, like how am I going to break this news? And what was kind of the process of that? Because obviously it was in your best interest to do that. So what kind of was that process like?
Yeah, it was honestly a very, very hard decision given the magnitude of the fight, having it be a rematch, a very big card on top of that, and just didn't want to disappoint my coach, my family at that. I knew I wasn't, but being in combat sports, any sports, I think especially combat sports, you're just ingrained to have this mentality to keep going, keep going, keep going, suck it up, keep going, and that's great for half the time, but the other half you have to be honest for yourself or else it'll come and bite you back. And it was just really a moment of that. It's just, okay, Jackie, be honest with yourself, be honest with how you're feeling. And yeah, that's what it came down to.
I love that you put yourself first in that moment. And I'm not going to get into your personal business at all, but I don't have that much Filipino family here in the States. And my uncle was someone that was really, really close to me. And when he passed away, it was so hard for me. It was at the end or the beginning of this year. And so when I got back to training jujitsu, there was like moments where I was like really struggling to even roll with people and put energy out there because I just felt so depressed, so depleted. So if you could give advice to any combat sports athlete dealing with something and they're dealing with something so emotional that it's like taking away at them physically, what are some pieces of advice that you could give them in those moments to really push through or even, take a step back? But what would you do in the moments that are really hard emotionally and you're trying to give so much physically?
Yeah, I mean, we all go through that in and out of training, but I would say you said it perfectly. It's so simple and cliche, but it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to take a pause. And I know that's so hard for people to do, especially in sports. That's so hard to do. You get a big sense of guilt and you start kind of having all this doubt and everything that comes along with it. But if you're not right inside, you're not going to be right outside. You're not going to be right with what you put out into the world. So take a step back. It's okay. It doesn't matter what people think. All that matters is what feels right to you and what you think is right. So it's
I
okay to
love
take a
that.
step back.
Thank you for sharing that. And I have two final questions for you. One of them is kind of like a hot topic, current news. Another fight promotion is taking a step back when it comes to their partnership with USADA, steroid testing. All of that is very prominent for some athletes. What is your general take on drug testing in any sport, but specifically fighting?
um, yes, I mean, I'll just speak on my sport, but specifically fighting. Yeah, it's necessary. I always advise with being a clean athlete. If you're not a clean athlete, I do think you're cheating at some sorts. You have an advantage, and I think everybody competing in the cage or ring, whatever, on the mats, whether it's jujitsu, everyone should be clean. It should just be 100% natural form against 100% natural form. If there's anything else besides that, yeah, I think you're cheating the system a bit. So I support being a clean athlete.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, it would be very intimidating to think that you could go up against someone that does have that advantage. And then also, there's a part of me that feels like sometimes the natural athlete will still win. I love what the Rotolo brothers are doing because it's a really big thing with grappling. At ADCC, they
Oh
don't test
yeah.
at all. So, they're trying to really prevail as the clean athlete and spread that message to people. So I'm so happy that that's the message you're also trying to spread, because it is quite the hot topic in
Yeah.
combat sports right now. But finally, to end on a lighter note, what is your favorite thing about being a Filipina?
Oh man, my favorite thing. Let's see.
The lumpia. I'm
The
just
look.
kidding.
I think it's it's so maybe specific, but I think if you're Filipino, you'll know this. It's like my grandma, my dad, um, we're very big, different ways to show love, but it's very common to show love through food. And I think that's where my like kind of almost like force feeding you in a way. And and like I don't know, I love that. I think it's so cute. It's just being able my I would always think it's so funny when my grandma and my dad would always kind of force feed me. And it'd be to the point, especially when I was younger, I'd get annoyed and start arguing with them, like I'm not hungry, but that's their way of showing love. And that's definitely influenced my love of being a foodie. If I wasn't fighting, I'd be eating absolutely everything right now. But I just think that's such a funny thing because I know every Filipino family has one Lola, one Tito, or something like that that definitely shows love through food.
And your answer just reminded me that I wanted to ask you about your first time making weight and being fully hydrated, fully fueled. You made an Instagram post that was crediting it to Tyler Minton, who had a different approach. You said it was something that you weren't used to, but in a good way. So could you elaborate on how that process was?
Yeah, I was, prior to working with Tyler, I started working with him when I made my debut for one championship, so like early 2021. And prior to that, all the nutrition I was just doing myself. It was just all research online, just word of mouth, hearing different advice from different people. And oh my God, that was so stressful because it's literally was like trial, error until finding something that works. So having Tyler with me definitely takes all the stress away. He gives me the plan. I touch base with him and he just fills me in weekly what we need to change, what we don't need to change. And what was so different about it was like I was eating absolutely everything, my full macros, whereas before I would cut my carbs, I would up my fat, or I'd just be playing with stuff like that where I'd manipulate the carb and fat intake. And as a combat athlete, you need carbs. You need to be refueling with carbs 110%. So being able to eat carbs and everything each meal and even eating more meals than usual, like 4 meals a day, that was like all the difference. I felt fueled for like all my big training sessions. I didn't have to go to bed hungry or wake up hungry. So yeah, just making sure someone's there to kind of cross your t's, dot your i's. He took all the stress away from that.
Yes, Tyler Minton is a genius. He's seen success with so many athletes. If you have any sponsors, teammates you want to give a shout out for, final thing, the floor is yours to share and give them a shout out.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank my team at Boxing Works, my coach Brian Popejoy, my strength coach Nick Curson from Speed of Sport, all my sponsors in Fight Style, Elite Garden, CBD. Yeah, thank you everybody. Thank you for rocking with me and supporting me.